Also take a look at how best to unlock the potential in Nigeria's agricultural export. My colleague Elizabeth Omori isn't here as usual, and she will be joining us sometime in subsequent editions. Let's get started. The COVID-19 outbreak and response in Nigeria has been accompanied by a massive infodemic. Why that has greatly hampered the compliance level of Nigerians with the pharmaceutical interventions, I beg your pardon, stipulated by the federal government to safeguard against growing infections, it has unfortunately also raised doubts about the ongoing vaccination drive. My first guest, however, believes that the safest bet for Nigerians for now is to get the COVID-19 vaccine, comply with the non-pharmaceutical interventions, and keep safe. Professor Moji Adeyeye, Director General, National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control, NAFDAC. Welcome to Insight, Prof.
Thank you very much. Good morning. It's good to be here. Thank you.
Let's begin this conversation by talking about the safety of COVID-19 vaccines. Can you confirm to us that for all of the vaccines approved by NAFDAC for use in Nigeria, they have been thoroughly ascertained to be safe? And can you take us through the processes they underwent and how these processes have ascertained possible side effects, especially with the emergence of the new variants of COVID-19 infection, that is the Delta variant?
Thank you very much. NAFDAC started this preparedness for the advent. I will call it advent of the vaccines. We started around April of last year. And we worked very hard, had meetings, international meetings with various bodies to get us well prepared. And by September, I believe, of 2020, we wrote our guidance on preparedness for COVID-19 vaccine. And this is a multi-directorate venture, meaning NAFDAC is multidisciplinary, from medical doctors to pharmacists to biochemists to food scientists to name it. We're a scientific organization. So we got the guidance written, and we were waiting for the vaccines to come. We have three mechanisms to approve for approving of vaccines. One is reliance. If a stringent regulatory authority has approved, let's say US FDA or EU authority, if they have approved that vaccine, we will get the assessment report and use our multidisciplinary committee to review the assessment report, and then wait for the vaccine dossier to come. Once the vaccine dossier comes, we will start our own review, and we do that for 15 days. And in this particular committee, we have again people with different disciplines: pharmacists, pharmaceutical scientists, biochemists, pharmacovigilance experts, and so on. Why are we doing this? We want to be sure that the quality, the safety, and the efficacy profiles of the vaccines that we get are of international standards. We already have our own quality parameters, safety parameters, and efficacy parameters. So we start looking at the dossier and also making sure that the peculiarities that we mightn't have seen even in the dossier and that we may see in our own population, that we note that before the arrival of the vaccine. When you are making a drug product, the quality is the first thing that you're going to start looking at. Of course, the safety using non-clinical studies, rats, mice, things like that. But the goal is to have a quality product, and we have our own quality attributes that we look for any drug product, including vaccines. Then we look at the safety and then the efficacy. Okay. And for all the vaccines that we have approved, we make sure that they've gone through phases 1, 2, 3, clinical trial phases. That is extremely important because at phase 1, you use only few individuals.
Okay.
Phase 2, you use more people.
Okay.
Then phase 3, you use thousands of people. Because what you don't see in 50 people, you may see in 100. You may see in thousands. So that is the difference between the different phases. So for the efficacy, we look, the safety and efficacy, we look at what the submission or the company has done. If the risks or the benefits far outweigh the risks, then we take the safety profiles as acceptable. Why am I saying the benefits far outweigh the risk? Is that for any drug product development, you will always have a risk.
Oh, okay.
That is part and parcel of what we do as drug developers. But the benefits must far outweigh the risk. All the vaccines that we have approved, they are of quality, they are safe, they've gone through preclinical, they have gone through clinical phases 1, 2, 3, and they are efficacious, and the benefits far outweigh the risk.
Prof, because I actually was going to ask you about, the core elements or parameter that determines NAFDAC's approval for of any of the vaccines in Nigeria for use here. You've just referenced safety and efficacy, and if the benefit far outweighs the risk factor. I would like for you to talk a bit more about that, because I understand that not all of the approved vaccines have been shown to protect against exposure or even infection, but they will protect from infections or infection progressing to full-blown COVID-19 disease. What then supersedes for you? What is the core determinant or key element that informs approval of the vaccine for use in Nigeria? Is it just safety or the level of efficacy? Which comes top for you? Use a percentage, for instance, and if the level of benefits is, say, at 60 and the level of risks is at 40, would you still go ahead as NAFDAC to approve such a vaccine?
That's a very good question. What we look for is percent efficacy. For example, Pfizer, BioNTech, and Moderna, they have 91% efficacy, which means out of 100 people, maybe 9, 10 people may not have the efficacy that we are looking for, but 90% will have that efficacy. If it is 75, 76, we figure that out too. However, all the vaccines that we have approved thus far, their efficacy ranges from 76 to 92% efficacy, which means that all the vaccines will be very effective in at least 75% of the population. And again, that is statistics.
Okay.
Very likely there will be more, because we are also thinking of the immunological profiles. The immunological profiles of each of the vaccines, rather, will determine, and then that also depends on the subjects, on the individuals. So overall, the efficacy that we are looking for should not be less than 72%.
That's reassuring. Prof, I've heard about the method for tracking. What method is being used for tracking of badges of the vaccines being distributed to states in Nigeria? I've heard of the serial labeling, and of course there are other advanced methodology. How do we decode these badges upon arrival in Nigeria and confirm that there are no mixed labeling which might raise concerns about authenticity?
That's a very good question again. NAFDAC is the only regulatory agency in Africa right now that is using a technology-driven tracking and tracing of vaccines wherever they go. Ethiopia could have been the second regulatory agency, but because of their unrest, the issues that are going on there, my own partner there couldn't do as much as he's supposed to, because both countries or both regulatory agencies were trained using the GS1 technology to track the vaccine from the point of arrival and storage at the point of arrival to the local government, to the farthest distance from Abuja in this case. Track and trace technology is essentially barcoding technology. For the Covishield or the AstraZeneca vaccine that we got first in February, I had one-on-one communication with the manufacturer in India. And India is more advanced in the barcoding technology, what we call serialization.
Yeah.
So we got what is called the master data from India before the arrival of the vaccine. And with our computer people, IT people in NAFDAC, we were able to scan all the boxes.
Okay.
We scanned over 7,000 boxes. What we call on the secondary packaging.
Okay, so the barcodes are not on the bottles, they are on the boxes containing the vaccine.
Exactly. So that is the secondary package where the vials are contained. The tertiary packaging is where so many boxes are kept. That's tertiary packaging. But we use the secondary packaging barcoding to scan all the boxes that came, about 7,000 plus boxes of AstraZeneca Covishield vaccine, when we were successful in tracking the vaccines from Abuja cold store, the primary health agency cold store, to the local governments. Because what we did also was to get what is called global location numbers, almost like what you use when you have GPS in your vehicle. Yes, so that the different facilities we used over 400 facilities and allocated global location numbers to all the facilities, so that when a vaccine gets to that global location number of the facility, we know that, and we can identify because we've already stored the information. So that was what we used, and NAFDAC is the only regulatory agency, I believe, in the world that's used GS1 technology-driven track and trace to monitor COVID-19 vaccine. And it is the beginning. It is a national strategy that the Minister of Health launched for us last year, traceability strategy. It is not just for COVID-19, it is for all products. So this is the beginning of bringing sanity into the supply chain in Nigeria. We're just using COVID-19 vaccine as a pilot.
That's actually good news. It would seem that NAFDAC is scoring some points as far as this COVID-19 response plan is in Nigeria. But then there's an area I would have thought or assumed that NAFDAC would have scored a point. And I'm talking about the seeming continued slow and delay in the approval of herbal remedy for COVID-19, knowing that CBN has been active with the grant intervention for herbal medicines. If the delay isn't a function of funding for the research, why then the law?
Thank you very much. Actually, the herbal medicine approval for use in Nigeria, again, NAFDAC is one of the few countries in the world that has regulated herbal medicine approval. I was pleasantly surprised to hear about 3 days ago that even the FDA, US FDA, doesn't have a structured mechanism to approve herbal medicines. In NAFDAC, we have a structured mechanism, meaning you submit all the evidences, scientific evidences that a particular herbal medicine works, and then we go through the safety, the toxicity testing, and some physical testing, and of course microbiological, that's part of safety. And if that herbal medicine passes our test, we give it a temporary approval.
Okay.
What is called, we list it. So at the end of the NAFDAC number, you have the listing. That is structured. However, that is just to say that this product, if it is used, it will not kill anybody. It is safe to use. However, that is not the end of herbal medicine development. It has to now go to the clinical phase. If somebody tells me that, oh, this medicine works, I've been using it in my family for years, that is good. I will probably believe them because I was also raised up on herbal medicine. However, scientifically, you have to demonstrate using a good experimental design, clinical trial design to show that it actually will work and to prove it statistically. So, in terms of herbal medicine product approval, NAFDAC is leading in terms of the structure. And then in March 2019, NAFDAC started Herbal Medicine Product Committee, where we brought the herbalists that many times they are not well educated in science. We brought them together with researchers from universities, from NIPRID, so that the two can start talking to start a renaissance of herbal medicine products development or translation into product.
Where has this convergence brought us to, Prof? Because that is actually my question. Where are we? Do we have any promising herbal medicine at the clinical stage at the moment?
We have a promising herbal medicines, not at the clinical stage, meaning since the pandemic, we have approved over 42 herbal medicine products for use.
But none at the clinical stage.
Some of them claim that they can relieve some COVID-19 symptoms. And we do just claim relief, not cure. But what we have done, what our Herbal Medicine Product Committee has done, is to pair researcher and practitioner together. That is what NAFDAC has done over the last 2 years.
Wonderful, Prof, with the structure. And of course, I do commend NAFDAC for setting up the laudable structure. I reckon most Nigerians would want to see some of these herbal products moving on to the clinical trial stage. But since we're on the subject of manufacturing, Prof, and evolving homegrown solution to some of these issues, Prof, we know that less than 2%, as a matter of fact, of our population is yet to be vaccinated, and we appear not to have reached. I don't know, I stand to be corrected, but it will seem that we appear not to have reached the maturity level of manufacturing the vaccines here in Nigeria. What are the inhibitions, and how are we going around them?
These are all loaded questions. The health sector was neglected for decades in Nigeria. And this COVID-19 pandemic gave the opportunity to the federal government to look inward. And part of looking inward is funding health sector. The CBN health sector research and development intervention scheme is part of that. The government also gave money through CBN to pharmaceutical manufacturers to rejig their structure, infrastructure. So many billions were given to local manufacturers in Nigeria. So that is part of what the government is doing. The government has also funded NAFDAC to redo her laboratory, vaccine laboratory, and to re-equip the laboratory. So that is underway for right now as we are speaking.
Okay.
However, as a regulatory agency, WHO wants to make sure that the regulatory agency is strong enough for that country to be given the approval to manufacture vaccines. For the past 3.5 years, since I got to NAFDAC, we have been on that roadmap of strengthening our regulatory system. And we had over 260 recommendations that we needed to fulfill. That was since 2018. Now we have only about 30 left. They visited us about a month plus ago, WHO, and looked at all the evidences. And it is not just one line evidence or one page evidence. It can be 20 pages. It can be 50 pages, one evidence. They looked at it, and we are because each regulatory agency is judged based on how strong the regulatory agency is. We are very close to this maturity level 3 that WHO is looking for in order for Nigeria, not NAFDAC, in order for Nigeria to be able to manufacture vaccine. So we are doing everything together. The government is getting ready, the companies is getting ready, NAFDAC, in terms of the laboratories and so on, and we are getting ourselves ready in terms of regulatory system strengthening. So I believe that within the next, at the worst, 6 months, we will get to maturity level 3. And once we get to maturity level 3, any company can present how they will do manufacturing. In fact, the government has a private-public partnership with a company, BioVaccine. Government has 49% stake in that company, and they are already funding, or they're going to fund that company to start manufacturing COVID-19 vaccine. The company was originally meant to be manufacturing routine vaccines, but they've added COVID-19 vaccine into their template now. So things are working well in favor of Nigeria from the regulatory side, from the general local manufacturing side, from the research side. For the CBN intervention scheme, we got over 300 applications. And we have to do a very good review, transparent, that can be televised on the TV. There is nothing hidden there. It is all science-driven. So we need to build quality into anything that we are doing, and that is what NAFDAC is involved with. I'm, chairing the one for CBN, and we have brought quality into it, brought transparency into it. And then for our own regulatory system strengthening, part of what we're supposed to be doing is to show is transparency, so that WHO or any other regulatory agencies in the world can have a confidence, a level of confidence in our regulatory system. And that is what is happening right now.
Prof, we're struggling with time, but these are quite germane issues, and I think they're important that we touch on them. We touch on them as much as we can. And so I am going to continue our conversation, and then I would ask you about countries currently administering booster shots to augment the 2 doses of vaccines already taken by their citizens, just so individuals can then build immunity. And apparently, the multiplying effect will be the herd immunity, being talked about. Here in Nigeria, our issues are different, and we are still talking about availability of vaccines, and quite troubling is the issue of vaccine hesitancy. If the campaign is taking this much time and energy to convince skeptics about the safety of the vaccines at this stage, I wonder what and how the response would be, or that would meet a campaign for booster shots.
Actually, again, that is a great concern. The misinformation has been deafening. The social media has not helped in terms of this misinformation. Vaccine hesitancy is decreasing in Nigeria. For example, when I got my vaccine in February this year, it was televised. And because I have allergies, I told the doctor, the nurses that will be coming, I said, I have allergies. Please, just in case I have a severe reaction, bring EpiPen. It's a shot you get when somebody is passing out, that they give it to you, and then you wake up again. I said, bring EpiPen. This was televised to let people know that you have to inform the people that are trying to vaccinate you that, oh, I have this,
Certain
I have that.
allergies, yes.
Yes, it should be transparent. And when they were about to give me the shot, I asked them, I said, where is the EpiPen? They said, oh, Prof, it is, here it is. Just in case I react severely, then they can give me the shot. So I showed them, I told them what my hindrances or inhibitions were. That is why some people actually saw that and they said, oh, we will take the vaccine now because there is nothing hidden. And it is very, very important for people to know that there is no medicine that doesn't have side effects.
Exactly.
And it is this benefits far outweighing the risk that people should think of. For example, even the AstraZeneca they have been talking about, if you have 8 incidences in 8 million vaccinations, statistically that is almost nothing.
That's
meaning
acceptable.
1 in 1 million. That is a risk. But the benefits far outweigh the risks. So what we are trying to do now is to make sure we explain to people, ask them a little bit about their history, so that we will be more comfortable, or they will be more comfortable. And also, anybody that is getting the shot must hang around, must be told to wait for 15 to 45 minutes, about, I think, 45 minutes, around the vaccination center, so that if there's any reaction, they will be treated. Just like I was asking for them to bring EpiPen or adrenaline injection just in case. So the vaccine hesitancy is decreasing in Nigeria. If NTA, we have our NAFDAC and Your Health every Monday or Tuesday. Yes.
Yeah, very true.
And at the end of each program, irrespective of the program that we're showing, we tell people about
the
vaccine,
COVID-19 vaccines, yes.
not to have hesitancy. And we also have Med Safety app. NAFDAC launched Med Safety app last year, where people can download it, whether you are using iPhone or Android, download it and record your side effect. Is it soreness of arm? Is it temperature that is unusually a little bit high, or whatever? Because once we have these side effects, regulatory agencies every other week come together globally. We come together and share information that, oh, that person, or not that person. Some people have this in this country. Some people have that in that country. For example, AstraZeneca vaccine that we just
referenced
the first rollout, the package insert, original package insert that came with the vaccine is now being modified because of this collection of information, side effects, serious effects, or whatever, all over the world, just to protect the public.
And to also make the process transparent and boost public confidence. Prof, we are totally out of time, but just before I let you go, I'd like for you to talk a bit, and very quickly too, about the global vaccine race and where we are currently with the COVAX initiative. I know that the COVAX facility was expected to deliver around 90 million doses of vaccines to the African region in the first quarter of 2021. That has passed now, and I would like to know how COVAX made the purchase order for Nigeria within that period, and what supplies are likely to get to our shores eventually from the projected 600 million doses being earmarked for the African region by the end of 2021.
Yes, COVAX is supposed to give us, Nigeria, 20 doses for 20% of our population, which means 40 million for 20% of our population, 40 million doses. And of course, it was a little slow, but they gave 4 million doses for AstraZeneca COVID Shield. Now we are getting Moderna, 4 million doses. We're going to, Johnson & Johnson arrived. And then we're going to have another AstraZeneca for those who needed the second dose and so on. So there are many channels now that are coming through to Nigeria, that of course coming through COVAX. But the goal is to, by 2022, is to provide us 40 million doses for our population. Nigeria, through Afrexim Bank or Africa generally countries, will also be purchasing their own vaccines because the 40 million doses will not be enough
Of course.
to get a herd immunity, which is 70%.
I understand we're also sourcing from Korea. Is that true?
Yes, we are getting AstraZeneca from Korea. You know, AstraZeneca was originally manufactured by
yes, in India, I think.
University, and then they gave licenses to Korea and to Serum Institute of India. So we're going to be getting from Korea also.
Yeah, fantastic. Professor Moji Adeyeye, Director General, National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control, NAFDAC. I'd like to thank you so much for coming on the program. Thank you so much indeed.
Thank you so much, and have a great day.
You too, Prof.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
I'd like to quickly say that in 2020, Nigeria's GDP amounted to over 152 trillion naira. That is well over 400 billion US dollars. The interesting thing for me isn't even that figure, but the fact that about 24% of the GDP was generated by the agricultural sector. But you see, there is another interesting fact. Though the agricultural sector has begun to make significant contributions to Nigeria's GDP, there's still the rather key issue of unlocking the potential of agricultural exports. Dr. Vincent Esigbe is the Director General, Nigerian Agricultural Quarantine Service, and he will be telling us why that has been an issue and if it is now a thing of the past. Welcome to the program, Doc.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here again.
Let me quickly inform the viewer that the Nigeria Agricultural Quarantine Service is an agency under the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development with the mandate to provide effective science-based regulatory services for quality assurance of agricultural produce, especially for export. Having said that, DG, I would like to begin with a very basic question revolving around Nigeria's SPS system. That is the sanitary and fetal sanitary food safety system. It looks like it has been particularly challenging enforcing a strong system. As a matter of fact, Nigeria's SPS food safety system has often been described as weak, making food exports from Nigeria very difficult. Is the situation changing, and how quickly is that happening?
Well, I agree with you that there's some challenge in the operations of SPS activities in the country. And you see, it's a national issue from the ordinary citizen, if you permit me to use that word, to we, the regulators who are supposed to ensure that that is properly carried out. Sanitary and phytosanitary measures involve everybody, from the farm level right up to when the commodity is exported. So we have a role to play even in the food we eat, because that is equally captured in the phytosanitary procedures that we have for the country. Now, sanitary and phytosanitary measures means that sanitary is for animal and animal-based products or commodities. Then phytosanitary is for plants. So anything that has to do with crops, you know, whether they are tree crops or rhizomes, tubers, or fruits, vegetables, they are covered under the phytosanitary. Yes. So that is just a simple, wide definition, clarification, based on the animal and the plant kingdom. So why it has become a challenge for us in Africa or in developing countries is that
Nigeria especially.
Okay, Nigeria especially is because
I'd like for us to narrow this conversation down to Nigeria.
Yes, it's because we have not really come to imbibe certain, let me call it, hygienic procedures, even in our homes. In the local market, you go to the local market, the whole market is filled with dust. Beef is put on a table, you know, it's not in an ice cold or refrigerated compartments or freezers where you can go and buy them from. Grains are sold in the open market where they're exposed to rats. You know, the stores are not properly tight. Rats can still pass through and enter. So those are some of the challenges that we have as a nation in which we have to address.
And these challenges translate to what we see play out when we take or package these produce and products for export.
Yes. I've decided to start from that level so that we can see the enormity of the challenge that we face when we come to SPS. So this, like you said, transmit to what we have at the export decks. Now, if commodities or grains are available at the farm gates, how does it get exported? Somebody buys it, somebody bags it, puts it in the warehouse, somebody applies pesticide on it to safeguard it against pests, insect pests, before they are shipped. Now, there are so many issues involved at this level. The moisture content is important.
Okay.
The choice of pesticide to use is important.
Okay.
2 types of pesticide, one at the farm level and one at the storage level. So, all those things put a lot of cumulative effect on the final commodity that will be exported. Then the role of the people involved in managing these commodities, from the farmer to the supplier, to the warehouse manager, to the transporter, and then to us, when we eventually certify it for export.
So DG, in essence, because you've raised a couple of issues. So in essence, when we talk about Nigeria's ability or its inability to take full advantage of the trade preference benefits between us and some other countries, say the United States, for instance, where we do get some significant amount of our food imports, with apparently, of course, nothing in comparison in terms of export. What really are the issues limiting our ability? Does it basically center on just the SPS safety standards, or are there other equally compelling issues that we need to address? Perhaps port issues, storage. You raised the issue of storage. I heard you talk about that. Is value addition also a problem? You talked about packaging. I mean, all of these put together, how do they contribute to our challenge? And because I do remember vividly the story that trailed Nigeria's first major yam export to Europe a couple of years ago.
This yam issue has refused to leave the media.
Yes, of course.
And we have addressed it properly.
Okay.
It's just a failure on the exporter to do the right thing. The one that exported to US had no issues.
Okay.
But the one that exported to the UK had issues.
But beyond the yam issues, I've raised some.
Beyond the yam issues, I've raised a lot of fundamental issues that we need to address. Value addition is a whole new thing that we need to address. I say new because we need to address it with all the seriousness it deserves. Now, you talked of other issues concerning the implementation policy, then the regulators. Who are they? Where are they? What are they supposed to do? Do they have the enabling environment to work where they are supposed to work? Or are there interferences from other government agencies and this and that? So it's a whole kaleidoscope, so to say, of interferences, that has challenged us as a nation in trying to do proper export. Now, what I want to bring to the fore is that for us as a country, we have no choice. Because the oil prices are going down,
yes,
the quantity of oil available is no more there as much as before. So we still need to return to what I call our first love, which is agriculture. Nigeria has been known as an agricultural country. We are still an agricultural country, and will continue to remain an agricultural country because we have the land mass, we have sufficient waters to harness, we have the human resources on the farm, and a population of 200 million people, 70% of which are farmers, so to say. So we don't have any excuse, so to say, not to export all the commodities that we can grow in this country. We have that capacity to do it. And government is doing everything to draw attention of the critical stakeholders to go into this export. And a lot of people are trying a lot. Take the issue of hibiscus, which we have gone back into exporting now.
Okay.
In 9 months alone, Nigeria made $35 million in exporting hibiscus to one country. Now, take the case of snail too, that was in the media some time ago. The quarantine service have been able to register 3 snail exporters to export snails to the UK. Okay. After Brexit, UK came out of EU. We were on the register for EU, but then after the breakup, we had to reapply, reassess, and then re-register those 3 persons. Apart from that, no animal products leave this country. And we, as a quarantine service, will say it is improper. We have to export animal products. So for the snails, we have started with 3 companies. There are about 23 registered with us, and we're engaging the remaining 23. If they pass the NQS criteria, okay, they'll be able to export snails overseas.
You've talked. Okay.
Yeah,
please
yes,
round
one
off
other
on your
issue
thoughts,
which we need to draw the attention of exporters is that apart from the fact that there are regulations, rules concerning export, even within the commodities, you find like for snail, some countries will take live snails, some will have to take frozen or processed snails. So for even a commodity, there are different rules that apply in different countries. That's why the quarantine service is in the best position to guide exporters as to what to do. For each commodity, there are different rules and procedures apply. So it's important that the exporters get to know about this. We constantly engage exporters either through TV adverts or the stakeholder meetings that we have. So those are the areas that we encourage that we should have sufficient interaction for anybody involved in export, to be properly informed so that we don't lose money after you have farmed and aggregated your products. It's not proper that it should be rejected.
I'd like for us to move a bit away from agro exports and talk about your other role. I mean, the agency's role in pest control, checking diseases and contaminants of plant products, animal products, aquatic resources as well. Products into and out of Nigeria, basically. How well is that going, considering what we hear and know of issues like bird flu? And secondly, I would like for you to tell me how efficient and effective our border checks, control and check system for livestock, either leaving or entering the country.
Yeah, Nigeria has a large perimeter of land borders, 4,047 kilometers, and the coastline is 873 kilometers. So you agree with me that it's a large operational area to cover. We are not able to cover.
That must be really challenging for.
So that's a challenge for us. Though we work collaboratively with the Nigerian Customs Service, Immigration Services, NTA and others who operate along the borderline. So if they notice something of interest to the quarantine service, they draw attention to it. And if we too notice something that is of interest to them, we draw the attention to it. So we have that strong collaborations with these agencies that I've mentioned. But concerning the issue of pests, yes, for us as a country and for any country that is a member of the International Plant Protection Convention, that's the IPPC, for which Nigeria is a signatory, before you can export, say, plant products, grains, you need to do what we call the pest risk analysis. You need to do what they call the pest crop survey. In doing the pest crop survey, you go across the country and find out the pests that are available in the country that will be an impediment to the other country importing it. And if they have a concurrence, you don't have any issue. But where there are differences, then you have to declare it. And if those people feel comfortable that despite that, they can still import, or you have to take certain measures to be able to contain those pests, then you do so. The audit team from that country will come, visit your own country, Nigeria, certify what you have done, and then they can give you a clean bill of health, plant health, to be able to export. We did that for sorghum, that is guinea corn, for China. And they came in here, stayed for about 6 weeks. They audited what we did, and they are happy. And we are ready, if not for COVID, to begin to export sorghum to China. So for every other country, we do that as well. The major challenge we want to draw to the nation, attention of the nation to, is that some of these rejections are not because our products are bad. It's important as a nation we have that, and the international community, they are aware of it. But see, when they flag a country, they just say a number of commodities have been rejected. It's when you go to the detail of the countries that you know for what reason they are rejected. Records showing that we have here, 80% of the rejections come from lack of phytosanitary certificate and prohibitive items. Over 80% of the products or commodities that we export from this country, they do not go with a phytosanitary certificate, which is mandatory and necessary for any plant product to leave this country outside. Some are prohibited, and so we will not even give the phyto certificate for it to exit this country. So people smuggle them. And we need to have that at the back of our mind too, that it is not our good agricultural produce that have an issue. I'll tell you one recent one.
Please.
A young man exported a container of cashew to India, bypassed quarantine. After all, he went through an agent who was paid, and he claimed to have gotten a quarantine certificate. Meanwhile, he did not come to quarantine. Only for the consignment to be intercepted in India. They looked at the commodity, it was fine. But again, it could not be accepted into India. And with the quarantine said, there's nothing we can do. We cannot issue a phyto certificate for a commodity that we have not seen. So we encourage even the exporters that if you hand over your commodity or consignment to an agent, please let us know that you have this commodity with an agent, and if within 2 days the agent has not approached us, we have a duty to notify that, look, we have not seen your agent, please find out what is happening. So these are some of the things that we do.
I must commend your agency for its work and how far it's come. I mean, in trying to, engender, increased agricultural exports. I know you've mentioned some figures here, and I cannot but help raise this again. I also have seen some figures released by the National Bureau of Statistics for the period between 2016 and 2018. Cumulatively, the country earned 53 million from agricultural exports. In contrast, Nigeria's total agricultural imports bill over the same period stood at 2.39 trillion, giving us an agricultural trade deficit of 1.86 trillion for that same period. Yes, we are trying, like you've said. I mean, trying to change our status from being a net importer to first becoming self-sufficient in food production and then upping agricultural exports. I don't know if you agree with me on that order that I have just placed our food production priorities. But do you think export is even an issue or should be seriously considered without first achieving self-sufficiency in local production in crops and other agro areas where we might have comparative advantages?
Now, what we are doing in the Federal Ministry of Agriculture, and particularly the quarantine service, is that, first of all, produce enough.
Okay.
Every nation, food defense, food security, produce enough. It is when you have produced enough that you can now export. Now, to export, you don't just export any commodity, you add value to it. So I was not able to address that. Value addition is one critical point that we need to address as a nation. And I'll give an example. Simple one, cassava, again. Now, Nigeria is the largest producer of cassava. We produce about 60 million metric tons of cassava. Ghana,
that's annually?
Annually. Ghana produces just about a third. But Vietnam, sorry, is it Thailand or Vietnam? One of the two, I keep mixing them together. Okay, let's take Thailand.
Okay.
Thailand produces just half. Now look at the statistics. While Nigeria produces 50 million metric tons of cassava, we earn only 1.25 million US dollars from the export of cassava products. While Ghana, that produces a third, earns 3.02 million US dollars. Now Thailand, that produces half, earns a whopping 1.8 billion US dollars. So where is the problem coming from? Value addition. Now they've been able to identify cassava species that can produce ethanol, and they focus on that, and they produce ethanol for sale. Now they'll be able to identify cassava species and varieties that can produce high-grade cassava flour for use in confectioneries and other products. So we are looking at that issue. Some years back, we had very large orders to supply, I think, China with cassava. That should be around 2010 or 8 or so. Then I was much younger in the service. So we are beginning to draw attention of government and research institutes to the fact that let us produce to specificity.
Okay.
If they need ethanol, let us produce cassava that can give us high volume or high percentage of ethanol. If you are looking for high-grade cassava flour, let us produce cassava that is good, that can give us good quality cassava. So that if you export just 1 ton of a high-grade ethanol cassava, so to say, you realize that you earn 10 times or even 100 times more than just shipping cassava. And we've seen that in cashew nuts. By the time you roast cashew, you salt, you spice, you are going to earn up to 1,478% above just
When you are
exporting
just sending,
ordinary
yes.
fresh cashew nuts.
It does make a lot of sense,
Makes
and
a lot of sense.
I do agree with you completely.
Yes.
DJ, I'm looking at Nigeria's agricultural export bill. Yeah, I mean, and I noticed that Asian countries are the leading importers of Nigeria's agricultural commodities. Of course, there are other markets. I see Europe, I see America. Yeah. But I do not see, when I compare the figures to what I see in Africa, I mean, it's relatively small. And that is quite surprising for me. I mean, why is that happening? And is the African Continental Free Trade Agreement likely to help us boost trade with other African countries, especially when it comes to agro-product?
Well, that is, I think, one of the reasons why the AFCFTA have come into play. If I can remember the statistics very well, inter-African trade is just about 15%, while inter-European trade is about 47%, and I think inter-American trade is about 67%. So you can see that trade within African nations is very, very low. And that could be as a result of the fact that we virtually produce about the same thing, bearing the geographical spread.
Okay.
But the idea we should look at is wherever there's market, let us pursue the market, discover the market, and then take advantage of the market. Now, the good thing about Nigeria is that equidistant, we are strategically placed. Second advantage, we don't have winter. So we can produce virtually all year round. The dry season, we can use irrigation to produce.
Okay.
Like vegetables, onions, chili, pepper, and what have you. So there's no season in this country that we cannot produce for export. So when Europe is having winter, we can ship a lot of vegetables, chili pepper, and all the commodities that they need. Irish potatoes come about just about this time. So we really don't have an excuse. What we're trying to do now is to map out the strategies, collaborate effectively very well, and see how we can take advantage of the large mass of land, arable land we have in this country, put our hands together, and then put this in the international market. There's hunger in the land. There's a lot that Europe and America can get from us.
It's actually not a laughing matter. Yes. I chuckled, but I can assure you, I take what you've just said very, very seriously. We're totally out of time, DG. But just before I let you go, I'd like for you to talk a bit about how much so the pandemic has affected your agency's operation and how you've been able to balance safety precautions in the discharge of your statutory mandate of inspection and certification of agro products at the port against the urgent need to reinvigorate the agricultural exports business in spite of the effects of the pandemic. Very quickly, if that's possible.
Thank you for that. The quarantine service, just one week immediately after the commencement of this restriction on COVID.
The shutdown, you mean?
Shutdown, yes. We, through the Honorable Minister, we approached the SGF, to give us a waiver to be able to continue the export, because we found out that there's not food available, nobody's on the farm, and people need to eat. So we had to take advantage quickly so that all those airlines that were bringing in COVID materials as they are going, they don't need to go back empty. And that's what we placed to government. And they saw reason with it, and they gave us the go-ahead to continue to export during that COVID season. So we took advantage of that. As for the other precautionary measures, well, most of us are scientists, are other vets, so we are aware of that kind of restriction. And in collaborations with the NCDC, we're able to work together, because we're actually in one of the technical teams of the NCDC. So we work very well together in ensuring that the COVID protocols are observed in terms of our packaging, in shipping, and relationship with one another. So to that extent, we have worked well together. The only thing is that, well, during that restriction, not much was able to be done as if, compared to when there's no restriction. But people have come out of it now, and they're back on the farms, and I think by the grace of God, we'll take advantage of what we have to export as much as we can too.
Dr. Vincent Isigwe, Director General, Nigeria Agricultural Quarantine Service, I want to appreciate you for your insights on these issues. I mean, they're truly insightful, and you have been a delight. Thank you very much indeed for coming on the program.
It's my pleasure. The NTA has been a good media outfit to us, and we're grateful.
And this is it on this episode of the program. Join us same time next week for more on Insight.